Hello, miladies of inestimable value. The strangest desires reveal the truest souls. Most people will tell you what they want in life: success, love, comfort, recognition. But here's the secret. What we say we want and what we die for are rarely the same thing. Psychologists argue that our deepest cravings are often the ones we're most ashamed to admit, because they don't fit society's script. Now, Sigma females, they don't play by that script to begin with. Their inner world is like a vault of unconventional cravings that most people wouldn't even think of, let alone confess. These are not your typical bucket list goals or Pinterest board dreams. No, these women crave things so unusual, so startlingly raw, that if you told them to an average person, they'd probably tilt their head, blink twice, and say, "Wait, you want what?" And here's where the intrigue deepens. While the rest of the world is chasing handbags, status symbols, and validation, Sigma females are quietly craving things that can't be bought, measured, or even understood by most. Things like the thrill of vanishing without a trace, or the strange peace of being completely misunderstood. That's why they're fascinating, because their desires sound almost alien compared to everyone else's. Strange, yes, but in that strangeness, brutally honest. So today, we're pulling back the curtain and exposing 12 strange things Sigma females would actually die for. Some will make you nod in agreement, others will make you laugh, and a few might even leave you slightly unsettled. Either way, once you hear them, you'll never look at Sigma females the same way again. Number 1. A world that doesn't demand her to explain herself. The strangest thing a Sigma female would die for is a world that doesn't demand her to explain herself. To most people, that might sound simple, but in reality, it's one of the rarest freedoms a human can have. From the moment we're born, society wires us to justify every move we make. Why didn't you smile? Why don't you call more often? Why are you single? Why don't you want what everyone else wants? It never ends. Most people get used to it. They bend, they explain, they over-explain, and eventually they shrink themselves down into a neat box others can understand. But a Sigma female? That's where she refuses to play. For her, explanation feels like a form of surrender. Every time she's forced to justify a boundary, a choice, or even her silence, it feels like she's giving a piece of herself away. She knows that people don't ask because they care. They ask because they want to control, categorize, and confine her, and she has no desire to live like a specimen under observation. The beauty of her life is in its raw, unfiltered authenticity, and the moment she starts explaining, that authenticity begins to rot. What makes this craving so strange is that most people equate love, connection, or respect with understanding. They want others to get them. The Sigma female doesn't care if you get her. In fact, she finds comfort in being misunderstood because it means she hasn't been tamed by anyone else's narrative. What she dies for is the freedom to simply be, without interrogation, without judgment, without having to translate her existence into terms that make sense for somebody else's comfort. This is why she values the rare people who don't demand explanations. Someone who accepts her vanishing for weeks without texting back, who doesn't guilt-trip her for saying no, who doesn't demand to know why she looks serious in a room full of laughter. To her, that kind of acceptance is the highest form of love and respect. It says, "You don't owe me your reasons, your excuses, or your defenses. I trust you as you are." And that, more than status, recognition, or approval, is what a Sigma female would truly die for. The right to exist unapologetically, without ever needing to explain herself to anyone. Number 2, a partner who doesn't demand entertainment. A Sigma female doesn't fall in love with charm or loud declarations. She falls in love with stillness, with someone who can sit beside her without needing the air to be filled with constant chatter or forced excitement. In a world where people equate love with attention and entertainment, this is what makes her different. She doesn't want to be treated like a performer whose job is to keep a relationship alive with endless energy. She wants a partner who can handle the quiet, who doesn't mistake silence for distance, and who doesn't spiral into insecurity the moment she stops talking. Most people panic when things get too calm. They start scrolling through their phones, fishing for validation, or asking unnecessary questions just to keep the moment alive. But for her, that kind of behavior feels suffocating. She's not afraid of silence. It's where she regains her power, where she feels most at peace. A partner who doesn't demand entertainment is someone who understands that love isn't about constant fireworks. It's about the kind of connection that doesn't collapse when nothing is happening. This doesn't mean she's cold or unfeeling. In fact, she's fiercely passionate. But she wants that passion to exist naturally, not as a performance. The truth is, she despises relationships where she feels like she's auditioning for the role of perfect partner. If she has to juggle jokes, reassurance, and validation every second just to keep someone interested, she'll walk away without hesitation. What she's searching for is someone grounded enough to sit with her in the rawness of life, eating in silence, driving without small talk, or just existing side by side without the need to constantly entertain. To her, this kind of connection is rare and deeply intoxicating. It signals strength, not weakness. It tells her that this person isn't using her to fill a void in themselves, but instead values her presence for what it is, steady, raw, and real. When she finds someone like that, she can finally let down her guard, knowing she's loved not for what she performs, but for who she is. And that, to a Sigma female, is priceless. Number 3. An identity untethered to trends. For a Sigma female, nothing feels more suffocating than the demand to fit into the shifting molds of culture. Trends, whether in fashion, behavior, or even ideology, are chains disguised as freedom. Everyone claims they're expressing themselves, yet most are simply echoing what the crowd has already approved. To her, that's not individuality, it's mass-produced identity. She would rather stand out as strange, unlikable, or even controversial than dilute herself to blend into what's in at the moment. This isn't stubbornness for the sake of rebellion, it's survival. When she sees people bending themselves into shapes that today's culture celebrates, only to discard them when the next trend arrives, it looks like voluntary slavery. To her, every trend is a leash, and wearing it means admitting you're too afraid to walk your own path. She doesn't want to be the it girl, the influencer, or the polished version of femininity Instagram applauds. She wants to be untouchable, someone who defines herself so completely that no wave of cultural pressure can rewrite her. This is why people often misunderstand her as difficult or aloof. When others rush to adopt the latest slang, fashion, or lifestyle trend, she resists, not because she doesn't notice, but because she refuses to let external voices dictate who she should be. While others are busy curating a version of themselves for public approval, she finds power in being uncurated, even messy, even unlikable. That rawness is her crown. What makes her unusual is that she doesn't just reject surface-level trends like clothes or social media aesthetics. She also resists deeper cultural expectations, the pressure to settle down at a certain age, the demand to showcase femininity in a palatable way, or the idea that success looks like a checklist of money, marriage, and milestones. To her, these are just larger trends, illusions of normalcy society uses to control people, and if refusing them makes her the outsider, she accepts that role with pride. So yes, she'd rather be hated than molded by culture, because hatred is temporary, but self-betrayal is permanent. And for a Sigma female, the cost of losing herself to fit in is a price far too high to ever pay. Number 4. People who don't flinch at darkness. Most people only know how to handle the lighter side of others, the laughter, the charm, the version that feels easy to be around. But a Sigma female knows that life isn't made of sunshine alone. She has storms inside her, shadows she doesn't hide from, and a depth that most people aren't strong enough to face. What she dies for is the rare soul who doesn't flinch when the light fades, someone who doesn't panic at the sight of her darkness, and doesn't rush to fix her the moment she stops smiling. To her, darkness isn't a flaw, it's truth. It's the side of her that carries grief, rage, loneliness, and unspoken thoughts most people bury under forced positivity. She doesn't believe in plastering over pain with motivational quotes or fake optimism. She believes in sitting with it, staring it down, and learning from it. That's why shallow connections exhaust her. They demand a version of her that's permanently glowing, permanently cheerful, permanently digestible. But she's not here to perform a constant state of light. She's here to live in her full spectrum, unedited and unfiltered. The kind of person she values is rare, the one who can sit quietly beside her when the storm hits without fumbling for solutions or offering empty reassurances. Someone who understands that sometimes the most powerful form of love is not fixing, but simply staying. It's easy to be with someone when they're radiant. It's extraordinary to be with someone when they're unraveling. That's the test, and most people fail it. When she finds someone who doesn't flinch at her shadows, she feels something she almost never allows herself to feel: safe. Not the fragile safety of words, but the unshakable safety of presence. That's when her guard drops, when her love deepens, and when she knows she's found someone worth trusting. Because if they can stand with her in her storms, she knows they're not just there for the sunshine. They're there for her, all of her, even the parts most people pretend don't exist. And that, for a Sigma female, is priceless. She would rather have one person who embraces her darkness than 1,000 who only worship her light. Number 5. Respect without the spotlight. A Sigma female doesn't chase validation or applause. She isn't impressed by public praise, trophies, or the hollow nods that most people mistake for respect. To her, the spotlight is often a trap, a place where attention comes with expectations, scrutiny, and the subtle pressure to perform. She doesn't want the world clapping for her. She wants to be seen in a way that doesn't demand a performance. That kind of recognition isn't loud or flashy. It's quiet, almost invisible, but deeply felt. What she craves is the type of respect that comes from observation, not instruction. The person who notices her efforts without needing her to announce them. The colleague who silently acknowledges her insight without turning it into competition. The friend who recognizes her integrity without needing a medal. It's in these small, almost imperceptible moments that she feels truly valued. This isn't about ego, it's about alignment with people who understand her without requiring her to explain or justify her worth. To a Sigma female, applause is fleeting and often shallow. It can be given to anyone with charisma, timing, or luck. But silent recognition, when someone understands her work, her choices, or her boundaries without needing a display, is rare, and she treasures it like gold. That kind of respect doesn't come with strings attached, and it doesn't force her to bend herself into someone she isn't. She thrives in the presence of people who don't demand entertainment, explanations, or constant validation. When someone recognizes her quietly, sincerely, and without fanfare, it feels like they're acknowledging her essence, not just her actions, and that acknowledgement resonates deeper than any public applause ever could. For a Sigma female, respect without the spotlight is not just desired, it's essential. It tells her she doesn't have to perform to be valued, that she can exist fully as herself without compromise, and that someone sees her true self even when the world doesn't. That, above all, is the kind of recognition she would die for. Number 6. Spaces where masks are unnecessary. For a Sigma female, spaces where masks aren't required are priceless. From the moment she walks into the world, she's surrounded by expectations, social rules, unspoken hierarchies, and the constant pressure to fit into a mold that was never made for her. Every interaction can feel like a performance, a careful calibration of tone, expression, and behavior just to meet other people's comfort levels. That's exhausting, and over time, it chips away at her energy and sense of self. What she would die for is a place where all of that disappears. A space where she can exist fully without filters, pretenses, or performances. In such a space, she doesn't have to soften her sharp edges or hide the parts of herself that society often labels as too much. She doesn't have to laugh when she's not amused, shrink her opinions to avoid conflict, or adjust her presence to avoid making others uncomfortable. She can speak, move, and think freely without calculating every reaction. That freedom isn't just comforting, it's life-affirming. It's the difference between surviving in the world and thriving in it. These rooms are rare because most people instinctively try to categorize or control what they don't understand. They want predictable behavior, polite conversation, and conformity to social norms. But a Sigma female doesn't exist comfortably within those boundaries. To find a space where she can truly be herself, where her quirks, intensity, and independent mind are accepted without judgment, is like discovering a secret sanctuary. It's not just about comfort, it's about authenticity. In a mask-free space, She can think deeply, express passionately, and interact fully without compromise. She can recharge, reflect, and create without the mental weight of constantly performing. And when she finds people or environments that allow this freedom, she values them immeasurably. For a Sigma female, spaces where masks are unnecessary are more than just rooms. They are lifelines. They are where she can breathe, reclaim her energy, and exist unapologetically. That kind of freedom is rare, sacred, and worth protecting with everything she has. Number 7. Friendships that don't expire with time. For a Sigma female, friendships aren't measured by convenience, small talk, or shared social calendars. They're measured by depth, trust, and unspoken understanding. She doesn't collect friends like trophies or maintain connections out of obligation. To her, a true bond is something that persists no matter how life changes, how distances grow, or how schedules collide. She despises connections that dissolve the moment life gets busy, because to her, that isn't friendship. It's temporary association, fleeting approval, or casual entertainment. Time doesn't weaken the bonds she values. It strengthens them. The friends she keeps are people who understand that life isn't always orderly, that absence doesn't equal abandonment, and that silence doesn't diminish loyalty. She wants relationships that survive hardships, periods of solitude, and the unrelenting push and pull of modern life. These friendships are rare because they require a level of patience, respect, and emotional intelligence most people aren't willing to invest. A Sigma female doesn't chase social validation through group chats, likes, or constant updates. She invests in people who see her even when she isn't performing or entertaining. She remembers who was present in difficult moments, who listened without judgment, and who stayed when others left. That memory is her anchor, and it dictates the friendships she cultivates. Superficial connections, drama-filled acquaintances, or people who vanish when things get complicated have no place in her world. She doesn't have the patience or the desire to maintain them. What she craves is timeless connection, a friendship that doesn't require explanations, excuses, or forced effort. One that feels natural, enduring, and capable of picking up exactly where it left off, even after months or years of silence. For her, these bonds are priceless. They are not just social connections. They are safe havens, mirrors, and lifelines. She would protect them fiercely and invest in them fully, because to a Sigma female, a friendship that doesn't expire with time is proof that some relationships are immune to life's chaos, a rare treasure she would never compromise. Number 8. Intellectual anarchy. A Sigma female thrives on intellectual anarchy. She doesn't simply follow ideas handed down by tradition, culture, or authority. She interrogates them, dismantles them, and rebuilds them in her own way. To her, conformity is suffocating, and blind obedience is boring. She dies for concepts that challenge the status quo, philosophies that question everything society insists is normal, and theories that push the mind into uncharted territories. Mental rebellion isn't just entertainment for her, it's oxygen. She's not interested in casual debate or polite discussion. What excites her is the clash of ideas that forces her to think deeper, the kind of conversation that turns assumptions upside down and forces everyone in the room to confront uncomfortable truths. She's drawn to thinkers who don't just tweak the system. They burn the instruction manual entirely. A Sigma female values intellectual danger, the kind that destabilizes certainty, because that's where growth, clarity, and true understanding live. Rules, labels, and hierarchies exist to contain the masses, but she refuses to be contained. She'll analyze, dissect, and even ridicule authority when it contradicts reason or morality. She doesn't rebel for attention or ego. She rebels because restraint and conformity feel like chains on her mind. Every rigid structure is a challenge, every unquestioned law an invitation to question. This isn't chaos for chaos's sake. It's exploration, curiosity, and the relentless pursuit of truth in a world that prefers comfortable lies. Her fascination with mental rebellion also extends to creativity. She admires innovation that shocks, art that provokes, and solutions that defy logic yet work brilliantly. Anything that forces people to reconsider what they thought they knew is irresistible to her. Ordinary thinking bores her. Predictable patterns frustrate her. Only ideas that spark discomfort or or radical reconsideration truly light her fire. Intellectual anarchy isn't a hobby for her, it's a defining part of her essence. She would rather swim against every tide of conventional thought than drift passively with the current of popular opinion. For a Sigma female, the thrill of dismantling authority, of tearing down assumptions, and reconstructing reality with her own mind is intoxicating, addictive, and absolutely worth everything. Number 9. The right to redefine femininity. For a Sigma female, femininity isn't a checklist of societal expectations or a performance to please others. She doesn't live for compliments, for being called beautiful, or for the validation that comes with fitting a mold. Those things are superficial, temporary, and irrelevant to her core. What she truly craves is the freedom to define femininity on her own terms, unbound by culture, opinion, or tradition. Her version of femininity is raw, untamed, and unapologetically authentic. It's a force of nature, not a curated image designed for others' approval. She resists labels and boxes that attempt to dictate how a woman should act, dress, or speak. Society may expect her to be soft, accommodating, or decorative, but she rejects those limitations. Her power lies in the freedom to embody strength, sensuality, intellect, and independence all at once, or in whatever combination feels right to her. To her, being feminine doesn't mean being submissive. It doesn't mean molding herself to someone else's comfort. It means being fully herself, in her own body, her own mind, and her own presence without compromise. This is why Sigma females often feel misunderstood. People expect femininity to look a certain way, to behave in predictable patterns, to fit into a socially acceptable box. When she refuses, she is often labeled difficult, intimidating, or even cold. But she doesn't care. The external judgment is irrelevant because she values her self-definition over public opinion. Redefining femininity for herself is an act of rebellion, empowerment, and self-preservation all at once. She seeks environments, relationships, and communities where this freedom is honored rather than restricted. She wants the right to move, speak, dress, and express herself according to her own rules without compromise or apology. That is more important to her than beauty, praise, or desire. It's the core of her identity. For a Sigma female, the right to redefine femininity is priceless. It's not about looking a certain way for others. It's about existing authentically, fully, and untamed in a world that constantly tries to cage her spirit. It's a freedom she would protect fiercely, and one she would die for if necessary. Number 10. People who don't panic at her absence. A Sigma female values independence above almost everything, and that includes the freedom to disappear without explanation. She doesn't vanish to punish or confuse anyone. She does it because she needs space, mental clarity, and time to recharge. Most people, however, panic when someone they care about steps away. They call, text incessantly, or stew in resentment, assuming absence equals rejection. For her, that reaction is exhausting, suffocating, and proof that the person doesn't understand her at all. What she treasures are those rare individuals who can handle her absence with grace, the ones who don't crumble, don't beg for explanations, and don't turn silence into drama. When she returns, these people greet her without bitterness, guilt, or judgment. Their calm acceptance signals trust, not only in her, but in the bond itself. They understand that her need for solitude doesn't diminish her care or commitment. It simply reflects her self-reliance. This kind of understanding is extraordinarily rare, and she recognizes it immediately. To a Sigma female, it's proof that the relationship isn't dependent on constant presence, validation, or performance. It's proof that the connection is resilient enough to survive distance, time, and the unpredictable rhythms of her life. That steadiness, that refusal to panic, earns her loyalty in a way no superficial attention ever could. She doesn't demand this as a test or a challenge. It's simply what she notices and values. When she finds someone who can meet her independence with respect rather than insecurity, she doesn't just appreciate them, she treasures them. That person becomes someone she can fully let down her guard with, someone who can be trusted with her complexity without trying to control it. For a Sigma female, people who don't panic at her absence aren't just companions. They are rare allies, anchors in her unpredictable world. They prove that connection doesn't require chains, and that love, friendship, and loyalty can exist without suffocating possession. And once she recognizes that kind of rare, patient understanding, she protects it fiercely and values it above nearly all else. Number 11. A room that feels like another universe. A Sigma female doesn't need luxury or opulence to feel alive. What she craves is something far rarer, a space that exists entirely on her terms, a room that feels untethered from the chaos of the outside world. It isn't about expensive furniture, flashy decor, or Instagram-worthy aesthetics. It's about a sanctuary where the noise, the judgment, and the endless demands of society simply cease to exist. When she steps into such a space, it's as if reality itself loosens its grip and allows her to breathe freely. This kind of environment isn't just about comfort, it's about mental liberation. She thrives in spaces that mirror her inner world, quiet corners where thought can run deep, shadows and light that don't demand attention, textures and objects that resonate with her personal rhythm rather than trends. It's a space that allows her to think, create, reflect, or simply exist without interruption. The ordinary world is too loud, too intrusive, and too demanding for someone like her. A room that feels like another universe gives her the freedom to exist without compromise, to explore her mind without distraction, and to reconnect with herself fully. Most people underestimate the power of environment. They believe beauty is in the surface, in appearances that impress. But for her, the essence of a space lies in its ability to protect and inspire her mind. She notices the way light falls across a corner, the subtle hum of silence, the sense that time moves differently inside that room. These details are her lifelines, the quiet signals that this is her domain, her safe haven, her unspoken retreat from a world that constantly expects performance. When she finds or creates a space like this, it becomes more than just a room. It becomes a personal universe, a tangible extension of her independence. In that universe, she doesn't answer to anyone. She doesn't perform, and she doesn't apologize for existing as she is. It is rare, sacred, and intoxicating. For a Sigma female, the pull of such a room is irresistible, and she would fiercely protect the right to retreat there whenever she chooses. It is not just a desire. It is essential to her survival and sense of self. Number 12. People who don't force-feed their opinions. A Sigma female values space for thought above all else, and nothing drains her more than people who insist on imposing their opinions. Most conversations are crowded with loud voices, constant corrections, and invisible pressure to agree. To her, that's not dialogue. It's mental clutter, and she instinctively recoils from it. What she truly craves is someone who can sit beside her without the need to fill every silence with their worldview, someone who respects that her mind operates on its own frequency. That kind of restraint is rare, and for her, it is invaluable. She doesn't require flattery or constant affirmation. She requires respect for her autonomy. A person who can hold back, who listens more than they speak, who doesn't treat every interaction as an opportunity to assert dominance or prove correctness, that person immediately earns her trust. She understands that opinions are not inherently dangerous, but the forceful delivery of them often is. It can feel invasive, suffocating, and subtly controlling. She would rather sit in silence with someone who understands her boundaries than be surrounded by chatter that pressures her to conform or respond in ways that drain her. The beauty of this kind of company lies in its quiet power. It's not about submission, it's about mutual respect and understanding. Someone who doesn't push their perspective allows her the mental freedom to explore her own thoughts, to question, to create, and to reflect without interference. They recognize that her mind is complex, layered, and self-sufficient, and they treat it with the same careful consideration they would a fragile, priceless object. For a Sigma female, these rare people are treasures. They are safe spaces, not cages. They validate her need for independence, not by words, but by their restraint. They show her that conversation doesn't always have to be a battlefield, and that companionship doesn't have to demand compromise of thought. That kind of presence is more valuable to her than charm, excitement, or superficial charisma. She would protect it, honor it, and yes, she would die for it. Because in a world obsessed with control, it's the freedom to think without intrusion that she treasures most. Sigma females are not easy to understand, and that is exactly why they command such quiet reverence. Their desires are not superficial, predictable, or safe. They are strange, rare, and unapologetically honest. From valuing spaces that feel like other universes, to seeking friendships that don't expire with time, to craving partners who respect silence as much as presence, every wish, every boundary, and every unspoken rule they live by reflects a depth that most people will never grasp. They don't chase approval, trends, or fleeting praise. They crave authenticity, independence, and the freedom to exist fully on their own terms. To be near a Sigma female is to witness a life lived outside the scripts and expectations that bind most of humanity. It is to encounter someone who defines herself, who embraces darkness as much as light, and who values rare, quiet understanding over empty applause. Her world is built on mental rebellion, timeless bonds, and the right to vanish or retreat without explanation. A world where masks are unnecessary and her femininity is hers to define. She doesn't demand much, but what she does demand is rare and sacred: respect, patience, and the space to exist authentically. And anyone who honors that, even in silence, becomes part of a truth few are privileged to experience. Sigma females are not just extraordinary. They are a reminder that some lives are meant to be lived untamed, and some desires are worth guarding with every ounce of being. If you've ever wondered what it truly means to be unstoppable, fiercely independent, and unapologetically oneself, studying the strange, rare, and uncompromising desires of a Sigma female is the closest glimpse you'll get. If you found yourself captivated by the rare, unapologetic world of Sigma females, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to join us for more deep dives into extraordinary minds. Tap like if this video opened your eyes, and comment below with the point that resonated with you most, because your thoughts matter. And of course, share this with someone who needs to understand the power of living untamed. Every click, every share, every subscription helps us uncover more of the hidden, fascinating truths the world rarely talks about. Stay curious, stay independent, and never apologize for being unstoppable.